Stanley Ipkiss, an unlucky and humiliated bank clerk from Edge City, gets an invitation to the Coco Bongo nightclub from his friend Charlie. Soon after, a blonde woman named Tina Carlisle, who sings at the club, walks into the bank. She asks Stanley to help her open a new account, and he nervously assists her, feeling very attracted to her. What Stanley doesn't know is that Tina has a hidden camera in her bag. She was sent by her boyfriend, Dorian Tyrell, a gangster, to gather footage for a planned bank robbery. Tyrell, who works at Coco Bongo, is plotting to take over his boss, Nico, with the help of some accomplices. After work, Stanley goes to the repair shop to pick up his car. Since the mechanics haven't finished fixing it, they give him an old, beat-up car to use instead. He drives to the club, but the bouncer at Coco Bongo refuses to let him in. Feeling disappointed, Stanley heads home, but his car breaks down on a bridge over the city river. Frustrated, he kicks the car, causing it to fall apart. While there, he spots something in the river and finds an old wooden mask. At first, he thinks it's a person about to drown. When he puts on the mask at home, he transforms into a cartoonish figure with a green head, unaffected by the laws of physics. In this form, he can freely indulge in his desires and fantasies. After a cartoon-like scene where he tries to silence his alarm clock with a wooden mallet and punches holes in the floor in the hallway, he confronts his landlady, Mrs. Peenman, who mistakes him for a burglar and shoots at him. He then uses a bicycle horn to shatter the windows of a passing car. He also takes on a gang that had tried to harass him on the streets, as well as the two mechanics from the repair shop. The next morning, Ipkiss initially believes he had only dreamt the events of the previous night. Shortly after, Lieutenant Kellaway knocks on Ipkiss' door and questions him about the incident in the house. Ipkiss claims to know nothing. He then throws the mask out of the window, but it returns to his apartment like a boomerang. Later, the mechanics are found badly beaten, sparking the interest of reporter Peggy Brandt, who wants to interview Stanley at his workplace, as he was a customer at the repair shop and making advances towards him in the process. Meanwhile, Tyrell is summoned by Nico after the latter learns about the plans to overthrow him. Dorian is forced to the ground and Nico hits a golf ball placed on Dorian's mouth with a club, humiliating him and indicating that he's done with him. Nico gives Tyrell a week to leave the city, threatening to kill him if he doesn't comply. That night, Ipkiss sleeps restlessly, dreaming of Tina. He's awakened by his dog Milo and puts on the mask again. Needing money to enter the club, he robs his own bank, arriving just minutes before Tyrell's accomplices. With the money, the mask gains entry to Coco Bongo. There, he watches Tina's performance and can't hide his affection. He begins to masterfully dance with her, and Tina falls in love with the masked man when he kisses her. Tyrell discovers that the mask has preempted his bank heist. He and his men confront the mask, attempting to shoot him without success. When Kellaway enters the club, the mask flees, and Tyrell is suspected as the mastermind of the bank robbery. However, Kellaway finds a piece of Ipkiss' pajamas, a part of the mask's shredded suit, in the club, raising suspicion that he might be involved. The next morning, Kellaway visits Ipkiss' apartment again. He knocks aggressively and persistently, leading Ipkiss, confused, to initially open the wardrobe where he has hidden the stolen money, barely managing to conceal it again. Kellaway confronts him with the scrap of his pajamas and asks what he knows about the person with the mask. Ipkiss claims the pajamas were stolen. Kellaway decides to observe him closely. Meanwhile, Tyrell convenes a meeting with his henchmen, promising a bounty of $50,000 to whoever locates the mask. After his workday ends, Ipkiss visits the mask expert, Dr. Newman, whom he had seen on television 2 days earlier. Newman suspects the mask represents the nocturnal Norse god of mischief, Loki, banished from Valhalla due to his unpopularity. When Ipkiss tells him about the consequences of wearing the mask, Newman dismisses him, thinking it's a joke. Ipkiss attempts to demonstrate, but it fails since the mask seems to be inactive during the daytime. Meanwhile, Kellaway receives information that the fingerprints on the money left behind by the mask during the bank robbery match those of Ipkiss. To see Tina again, with whom he arranged a meeting for his supposed friend, the mask, Stanley puts it on once more. However, the rendezvous goes poorly as he acts overly intrusive, frightening Tina significantly. He gets arrested by Kellaway and his colleague, Sergeant Doyle, but manages to escape with the help of Peggy Brandt, who promptly delivers him to Tyrell and collects the bounty. Tyrell takes possession of the mask and puts it on while having Ipkiss tied up. His henchmen break into Ipkiss' apartment and seize the money from the bank robbery. Unnoticed, Stanley attracts Milo's attention. The dog chases after the car in which his owner is being held captive. Ipkiss is pushed out of the car in front of the police station by Tyrell's henchman, wearing a green rubber mask. Kellaway discovers him there and locks him up. In prison, Ipkiss receives a visit from Tina. She tells him that Tyrell is planning an attack at a charity ball in the Coco Bongo. Having learned in the meantime that he was the mask and that Tyrell now possesses it, she asks him how it works. Ipkiss explains that it allows the wearer to indulge their secret desires without any hindrance. And both realize what this means in relation to Tyrell. He advises Tina to flee the city. However, Tyrell gets wind of Tina's visit and his henchmen intercept her outside the prison. She tries to escape in vain and is forced to accompany them to the planned attack. In the meantime, Milo managed to locate his master. Ipkiss encourages him to jump up the prison's outer wall, catches him, pulls him inside through the bars, and has him fetch the prison guard's keys. Ipkiss takes the guard's weapon and takes Kellaway, who happened to be on his way to his cell, as a hostage. He drives with him and Milo to the Coco Bongo. Tyrell puts on the mask again, blows up the gates of Coco Bongo, challenges Nico to a shootout, and kills him. Afterward, he ties Tina up, attaches an explosive device to her, and sets the timer for 10 minutes. Ipkiss is found in the club by Tyrell's henchman, Orlando. Tina uses a clever trick, asking Tyrell to kiss her again as the real Dorian, without the mask. During the kiss, she frees her leg and kicks the mask into the air. Milo, who had opened the car door and entered the club, catches the mask as it lands on his head while being held by one of Tyrell's men by the hind legs. Meanwhile, Ipkiss and Tyrell fight. Ipkiss eventually knocks Tyrell out with a precise punch, sending him flying into a slot machine, leaving him unconscious for a few minutes. Later, Ipkiss puts on the mask one final time, taking it from Milo. Using his superpowers, he swallows the bomb just in time and flushes Tyrell down a magically conjured giant drain. Afterward, he removes the mask. When Kellaway tries to arrest him again, he is stopped by the mayor, who says he saw Tyrell wearing the mask and that Ipkiss saved everyone's lives. In the end, Stanley, Tina, Charlie, and Milo stand on a bridge overlooking the river. Stanley hesitates to throw the mask into the water. Tina takes it from him and tosses it over her shoulder into the depths. He no longer needs it to impress Tina. As they hug, Charlie jumps after the mask floating on the surface, but Milo is faster, swimming away with it in his mouth. If you enjoyed this recap, subscribe so you don't miss any more recaps.